I have made this specific video 3 separate times at this point in 3 different ways. The first one was just going to be going over summarizing the general understanding of the Stop Killing Games Initiative pirate software fight that's happening. And I saw Moist Critical cover it twice. I was like, okay, well, people understand what's going on. That's going to be a waste of time. And then yesterday on stream, I went through Pirate Software's tweet where he asked people to just go through all the information and make their own opinions, which I did. And it took me the span of about 3 hours to do so. Today, I was planning to cut that down into a video. Almost, I guess I'd feel as a bit of a spite piece to prove that, yes, I did go through your information. I still find that you're misrepresenting the initiative. But then I got linked to this video. This is Upper Echelon's video about pirate software and the stuff that's been going on. And I'll be very frank with you, it is the reason that I'm scrapping pretty much that entire video and making this one now. Let me give you a 20-second recap. Pirate Software was really opposed to the Stop Killing Games initiative. And the initiative was essentially saying, hey, if you pay for a game and it's, advertised as purchasing the game, you should have access to that game even if the creators of it or the developers hit a kill switch and they stop providing service to it. Think like if Diablo 4 were to go out of service, you wouldn't have access to the single player aspects because it's an only online game. Now, Pirate had a lot of arguments against this, and most of them stemmed from an inaccurate understanding of the initiatives of the goal and also what it would do and what it wouldn't do. Again, far bigger people than me have covered this and summarized it. I'd urge you to check them out. I'll put some links in the description for you guys. And I wasn't joking. Look at all of these tabs I had opened up. As a matter of fact, I'd even spoken to Ross, the guy who created the initiative, as well as Pirate Software. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm not going to go through this because I sent an absolute novel of a message to him and he responded to me. He asked me that if I'm sharing these, that I share it in full and not in portions. So I'm just going to link, you'll see a little thing above me here, to my live stream, and I'll put a timestamp inside of that description or inside the comment section to let you guys know when I go over this. And I'll also include when I go over Ross's emails with me as well. My main goal there was just try to set up a mediated discussion between the two of them. Pirate was not interested. But this is the video from Upper Echelon, Pirate Software Internet Villain. He just posted it yesterday, and there is a bit of back and forth with his comment sections talking about his perspective on this. I'm going to show you one specific part of this that I think is causing a lot of that kind of friction and the thing that I kind of agree with the most. Just a little bit of context with this. At first, he's talking about his experience where he posted a video, a lot of people reacted to it, and a lot of people disagreed with his opinion, and there was this huge mob in his comment section, similar to what Pirate's going through right now, where there were tons and tons of people telling him he was wrong to delete the video, etc., etc. And that leads into this point right here.
You reach a point where the feedback has been given, it has been heard, and everything after that point in time is useless, repetitive dogpiling trash. There comes a point in time, what precise number I honestly don't know, but it's smaller than you would probably think, where the dynamic of comments or messages and feedback stops being human to human, if it's all overwhelmingly negative, that is. And it starts becoming human to mob. When that transition happens, speaking from experience here, by the way, there's a variety of outcomes. One, probably the most common, is depression. But for me, and I also highly, highly suspect that this is true for Pirate Software as well, for me, it was stubbornness.
This idea that he's talking about once you start receiving a certain amount of hate, it suddenly stops being actual useful critiques that you're pulling in from different point of views, and it starts just to become this amalgamation in your head of the internet mob. It's just this entire force leading up to you, and suddenly it kind of moves away from, like you said, it's not human to human anymore. It's not you having an insightful, or receiving insightful criticism. It's just a group of people all saying the same thing. If you only have cake on birthdays, cake feels amazing. If you only get, a shot at the doctor once a year, it kind of sucks to get the shot. But if you're receiving it every single day, hundreds and hundreds of times, suddenly it doesn't mean anything. If anything, it might get frustrating over an amount of time. Like, wouldn't you get sick of eating cake, or wouldn't you get sick of getting injections every single day, even if it sucked? But at some point, it just becomes nothing. There's nothing more to gain from it. But he continues on, and he's making a theory as to what is happening with Pirate Software right now, why he hasn't backed down, or why he hasn't, said, my bad, I misrepresented it. Any sort of, small leeway in admitting that he was wrong in some sort of way. This is what Upper Echelon thinks is going on.
Once that happens, you grit your teeth and you don't give them a single thing that they're demanding. As soon as it's a mob screaming for you to grovel before them and apologize, at least for me. Again, I'm like 99% sure this is exactly what's happening with pirate software too. As soon as it's a mob, they're not getting what they want. It doesn't matter if you were wrong, and me personally, I certainly was wrong, but it doesn't matter anymore if you're right or wrong, because the mob doesn't deserve the satisfaction. In my case, I had thousands upon thousands of people screaming at me to take a video down, so I left it up. I had people yelling at me to apologize, so I ignored them on purpose. I did the precise opposite wherever possible and denied the mob any chance it had of ever claiming victory, even a shred, in any capacity whatsoever. And while I'm certainly not going to sit here and say it's the best way to respond in a crisis, no one watching a YouTube video actually knows how they would respond in that same crisis until it happens. I see that same exact response right now from pirate software, but it's happening on a scale that I couldn't even dream of. His defense mechanism is, I will not cave to this mob. On the bright side, if I'm correct here in the interpretation that he has a similar fight or flight style response compared to my own, if I'm correct here, then he will properly understand deep down inside secretly that he was objectively wrong about the Stop Killing Games initiative. In a year or 2 or 5 years, he may even come out publicly and say it. I was wrong, or admit it, who knows. However, short term, the rabid mob of internet viewers hell-bent on shaming him and publicly forcing an apology or a retraction, or I don't even know what they want at this point. It feels like they just want him to have a breakdown. I don't think they know what they want either. It's just popular to hate him. But if I'm right about this, they'll get nothing. And to a degree, I actually kind of support that.
Okay, so now this is where I differ a bit with Upper Echelon. Now I need to preface this, and honestly, I should have done this earlier, and if you're still watching at this point, you could check the comments and you're gonna see what I'm about to talk about. This is not a video that is defending pirate software. My focus isn't defending or attacking anybody in particular, it's bringing light to this point that Upper Echelon's made that I don't think people are looking at. I don't think the craziest thing here is that he thinks that Thor is not going to back down, that he is not going to give in to this mob, because that is the perception that he has. But I think the focus point of this is that when met with this adversity, when met with this fight or flight, Upper Echelon thinks that he's going to do the same thing. And that's not because he hates the Stop Killing Games initiative, which, yeah, he probably does. You know, maybe he does, maybe the misrepresentation, I mean, maybe deep down he does hate it. But I think the point here is that it doesn't matter if he hates it. If he supported the Stop Killing Games initiative and people were upset with that because he was a developer, he'd be doing the same thing that he is right now. And that's because when you hit this critical mass of people that are devoutly against you, similarly to the OnlyFans stuff or anything else that he's been a part of, you see a similar pattern of behavior. He locks up and he's not willing to give this mob what they want. And when you get to that point, I don't think that you should just be abetting a mob simply because you think you need to. I think you should only be giving in if you truly think so and you're able to work past that. But when Upper Echelon is talking about this mob and, you know, what they're wanting to come out of this, I think that he's kind of right. You know, people want their pound of flesh. People are upset. They want him to grovel, things like that. Personally, I think the biggest reason is that in consequence of him not being able, not being capable, you know, standing against this mob will not change what he has said about this initiative. It has much bigger implications. And another good thing to mention here, you're not subscribed. Like, we're balls deep into this video and you haven't subscribed yet. It's just checking in, make sure you know. But if this is like your first time watching me, you're not interested on that, if you could just leave a like if you found what I've said interesting, entertaining, or helpful, it would do a great deal in helping this video, helping me out, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed the rest of the video. This isn't just a bad take on a movie or a video game or something that's kind of simple. This is something that had legitimate potential ramifications to law that seems to be important to a lot of people going into effect. It isn't just because people disagree with him, it's because that his disagreements and misrepresentations of this movement have made it suffer greatly, to a point that you can attribute a lot of its, you know, lack of success to what he has said about it. I think that's what's most frustrating for most people in this situation. I think that's why Moist Critical came out of the drama woodwork after 10 months, because number one, actually, you know, maybe majorly, his talking with Pirate and going nowhere for hours after having a conversation, but also because Moist Critical, Charlie is a huge gamer. Like that's a good half chunk of his content. He just did Death Stranding 2 gameplay. Like it matters to him. But unfortunately, I do have to agree with Echelon in regard to how futile this is at this point. If this is how Pirate behaves, it doesn't really matter the larger implications of his opinions on the Stop Killing Games initiative. It doesn't really matter about those things because at this point, it's him versus the mob. And just about nothing else matters. Like if you're in a situation where you're arguing back and forth with somebody about something that maybe you would have been willing to, compromise on, but they call you a name, that's out the window. There's no more compromise. This person is now a villain to you in the same way that the people disagreeing with Pirate are now just seen as this villainous glob that is pushing up against him and trying to make him grovel. And whether that's the truth of the matter, it's not really up to us to decide that. Like it's already that point in Pirate's head. And again, I'm not defending Thor in this situation, but at this point, like I just said, if you were in that position, you get name called by so many people. I know some of you, myself included, will hit the double down because at that point, you don't think that the person you're arguing with is actually going to see any reasoning that you have. And that conversation has completely shut down. We're not doing that anymore. And now it is going to be a battling of ego. And you don't have to have like a hyperinflated ego like many think Pirate has, myself included. It doesn't take that. It just takes thinking that you're right and the other person's wrong. And as soon as you're not willing to have that agreement, it's done. And now it is just going to be saying you suck, you blow, vice versa. And admittedly, when I was doing my 3-hour stream of nitpicking and going through both of Pirate's videos and going through and comparing them to the Stop Killing Games, Ross's video about it and, going through every counterpoint, I wasn't thinking about realistically what that's going to do. But I kind of just fell for the rhetoric of someone who is at this point where their back is against a wall and they're not going to start climbing. This is the thing that got me to do that. What he actually did. He talks about his videos and that they're linked at the bottom of the post. Many people have not watched them and are just calling me a liar or attacking my character. Give the videos a watch, read the initiative itself, make a conclusion that you aren't copy pasting from social media. And I thought it would be really funny if I went ahead and did that. And to absolutely nobody's surprise, I came to the same conclusions that Charlie has been pointing out, that everyone has been pointing out when this first hit the fan, as well as when it is right now. And after beating my head against that wall and just reiterating what everyone else has commented on, Ross included, it just kind of felt like, well, what is that point? And after seeing Upper Echelon's video, it just kind of opened my eyes that is futile. It's just kind of me going in and taking my pound of flesh as well. The time for that to have been useful was maybe right when it came out, but even then there were enough people already disagreeing with him that I don't even think that it would have done much at that point either. To bring it all into a concise point, I don't think that Upper Echelon is wrong about this hate mob. I think he's right on the money with how Pirate Software is perceiving this right now. But I do disagree with him on what specifically this mob is aiming to achieve. I think there is a difference here, and that has to do with the Stop Killing Games initiative. There is assuredly a chunk of people that are just feeling vindicated because they don't like the guy or his personality, like Echelon talks about in his video. But I myself was really pushing for this, and even in the messages that I had sent Thor as well as Ross, I was definitely moved by the Stop Killing Games initiative and the impact that he's had on that initiative. And as much as I think that that is taking on a very serious aspect as to why there are so many people upset with him, I still think that in total, it ends up becoming a moot point when, like Echelon said, there are thousands and thousands of people saying the exact same thing to Thor on his streams, on his Twitter, everywhere. Every single post that Pirate makes about this is getting ratioed in the comments. Even just here, he has 3.3K likes and then 1.5K, and immediately the first thing is 3K, and that's just in response to the thread after this. If we even just look at this one and take a look down here, the first comment is, you say the initiative demands about 5.8K. And this 5.8K is led into him responding with a 257. Like, people are really going at him. This isn't the best metrics to go by, but you get my point. The last thing I wanted to show in this video was a person that I was arguing with in my stream yesterday. I'm prefacing this by saying, please do not hate on this person or give them shit for their opinion. I think it's a really good example. I'm not trying to make an example out of them as a petty thing, But after watching the Echelon video, it's very, it kind of gives a bit of credit to Upper Echelon's video in that sense. So is this gentleman right here, Fall of the 11th. So we were chatting and he's pretty much just not a fan of Pirate. And he's saying he's basically blah, blah, blah. And then he said, call it for what it is. It's slander. And I disagreed with that because I didn't think that it was slander, because I don't think that Pirate has been acting maliciously, and he didn't when he first started talking about this. I think he misrepresented it. I think he misunderstood it. And so that's where I'm coming from, where you can't prove that it's slander. We have no way of knowing that behind the scenes maliciously, he knew what he was saying was incorrect and was doing it to negatively impact it. I genuinely believe that he genuinely believed that this was bad for gaming. But as we continue on, he talks about that he had been caught lying multiple times. And so I was saying, I'd like to see that, because like we were arguing, I was like, it's not lying, because I was thinking of him intentionally, not telling the truth. But Ross pointed out there's a different definition for lying, which is, what he's doing here. So actually, admittedly, Fall of the 11th was correct. He was lying, but Fall of the 11th thought that he was doing it for malicious reasons, which is why I disagreed with him. And so he brings up quotes that the Act Man said, and he said that that's deliberate slander. And I was telling him, hey, just because you're bringing up a quote of the Act Man, that's not any more proof than just saying that it's so. And then he starts saying that the general consensus is that he's lying, because why else? Why would someone go out of their way to misrepresent? That's malicious. We fall down this rabbit hole where he's using logical fallacies, and then I argue and I use one myself, so I correct it. And we're kind of going back and forth. And I'm just saying, hey, if you have evidence, I'd love to see it. But I'm literally going through his videos during this stream to showcase and go over his beliefs. And so I'm disagreeing with him. But we keep going back and forth. But it gets to a point where it's become very clear that we're, not arguing in the interest of changing anybody's mind or having a useful discussion. Fall the 11th just wanted to get me believing that this was malicious, or maybe not even that, but just saying like, how could you not think that it is? And you could make that assessment, but I was just going off of what was in front of me. And I've already fallen into the trap in my past of just, making assumptions on what people's intentions are, and that coming back to bite me in the ass. Matter of fact, if you guys remember back to the Mr. Beast drama stuff and Soggy Cereal putting out his video about it, we were on very different sides of that. We had major disagreements, and I thought that he was acting in bad faith at points. That was my personal belief on it. And then I got to meet him at VidCon, and the dude's great. We chatted about it. We had like full-on multi-hour long discussions about that entire drama, and getting to hear his perspective in real life and actually work through that with him, in a way that we never had. We never had a discussion on it, him and I. It changed my perspective on him. It had a radical difference on how I understood that. And I know that that is not a direct comparison to what is going on with Thor right now, but those moments and those experiences have really started to kind of pull me back and make sure that I am being hesitant on making assumptions about people I know nothing about. And until I have that direct evidence now going forward, I'm not comfortable just throwing out accusations like that. It doesn't make sense. Whether you absolutely despise Thor or like him and agree with his opinions on the Stop Killing Games initiative, however misrepresented they are, the point is you guys are allowed to feel any of those feelings. You're allowed to make those decisions and have those beliefs, and I don't care. I'm just glad that you're here watching my videos talking about it and are coming to my channel to have those discussions. That's what matters to me. I love getting to read through the general discourse of a comment section. Well, the 10% of it that is actually having a discussion, and not the people just saying W or like throwing a skull emoji or something dumb, right? To close this out, yes, I think Pirate Software misrepresented and had a detrimental impact on the Stop Killing Games initiative, and a lot of people are really upset with that. But I also agree that at this point, nobody that is upset with him at this point is going to get anything that they want out of this by going after him. Because really, Stop Killing Games needs signatures, not, hate mobs. So if you'd like, I'll leave a link in the description down below. If you're from any of the countries within the EU, you can sign this, and that's going to do a lot more than leaving a comment on any of Thor's videos. If you really dislike the guy, just don't watch him anymore. Don't give him the watch time. Don't do those things. And like, truly, that's really all you can do outside of trying to support Ross in the initiative. But that's it. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Adios. Peace. Bye.